Board Policy JIC-FAA, Harassment, Intimidation, or Bullying. The Board prohibits acts of harassment, intimidation, or bullying of a student by students, staff, and third parties that interfere with or disrupt a student's ability to learn and the school's responsibility to educate its students in a safe and orderly environment, whether in a classroom, on school premises, on a school bus or other school-related vehicle, at an official school bus stop, at a school-sponsored activity or event, whether or not it is held on school premises or at another program or function where the school is responsible for the student. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying is defined as a gesture, electronic communication, or a written, verbal, physical, or sexual act reasonably perceived to have the effect of either of the following: harming a student physically or emotionally, or damaging a student's property, or placing a student in reasonable fear of personal harm or property damage; insulting or demeaning a student or group of students, causing substantial disruption in or substantial interference with the orderly operation of the school. Complaint procedures. Any student who feels he or she has been subjected to harassment, intimidation, or bullying is encouraged to file a complaint in accordance with district procedures. Complaints will be investigated promptly and thoroughly. All school employees are required to report alleged violations of this policy to the principal or his/her designee. Reports by students or employees may be made anonymously. All other members of the school community, including students, parents, legal guardians, and volunteers and visitors, are encouraged to report any act that may be a violation of this policy. The identity of the victim or reporter of bullying or harassment will be protected to the extent allowed by law. Retaliation or reprisal is prohibited. The district prohibits retaliation or reprisal in any form against a student or employee who has filed a complaint or report of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. The district also prohibits any person from falsely accusing another as a means of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. Expectations for conduct. School administrators, faculty, staff, substitutes, and volunteers must demonstrate appropriate behavior, treating others with civility and respect, and refusing to tolerate harassment, intimidation, or bullying. The board expects students to conduct themselves in an orderly, dignified, and respectful manner. The board expects students to conduct themselves in keeping with the district's standards for student behavior, with proper regard for the rights and welfare of other students and school staff, the educational purpose underlying all school activities, and the care of school facilities and equipment. Students and employees have a responsibility to know and respect the policies, rules, and regulations of the school and district. Staff and student responsibilities. The board believes that the best discipline is self-imposed and that it is the responsibility of staff to use disciplinary situations as opportunities for helping students learn to assume and accept responsibility for the behavior and the consequences of their behavior. Staff members who interact with students will apply best practices designed to prevent discipline problems and encourage students' abilities to grow in self-discipline. Any student or employee who is found to have engaged in prohibited actions as outlined in this policy will be subject to disciplinary action, up to and including expulsion in the case of a student or termination in the case of an employee. Individuals may also be referred to law enforcement officials. The district will take all other appropriate steps to correct or rectify the situation consistent with Board Policy JIC-FAA and its administrative rule. School policies, procedures, and programs. Each school will implement board policy through the following: using the definition provided for bullying behavior, using an evidence-based program that addresses bullying, ensuring that training on this topic is handled in a focused and intentional way, specifying school procedures to deal with bullying, gearing these to the development level of the students at the school, including these procedures in the student handbook. Students should receive information about how to recognize bullying versus tattling, how to refuse bullying, and how to offer assistance to someone who is being bullied. All students and persons on staff should be familiar with how to report bullying behavior and how to get assistance with bullying, whether they themselves are being bullied or whether they have observed bullying. Reports and trained responders. The board requires the principal or his/her designee at each school to be responsible for receiving complaints alleging violations of Board Policy JIC-FAA and its administrative rule. Each school principal will appoint at least one faculty member to be trained in how to deal with bullying situations involving students. Incidents involving staff will be dealt with promptly by the administrator in charge. All school employees are required to report alleged violations of this policy to the principal or his/her designee. All other members of the school community, including students, parent legal guardians, and volunteers and visitors, are encouraged to report any act that may be a violation of this policy. While submission of a written report is not required, the reporting party may submit a written report. However, oral reports will also be promptly addressed. Reports may be made anonymously, but formal disciplinary action must not be based solely on the basis of an anonymous report. If requested, the identity of the victim will be protected to the extent allowed by law. Thank you for your attention to this important information. Please direct any questions that you have to your principal or another appropriate school administrator.